What if a simple polka dot could become a doorway into infinity? What if repeating the same pattern thousands of times could completely change the way you see yourself and the world around you? This is the fascinating story of Yayoi Kusama, one of the most recognizable contemporary artists in the world. Her bright dots, giant pumpkins, mirrored rooms, and endless patterns have turned ordinary spaces into dreamlike experiences. But behind those colorful artworks is a deeply personal story of imagination, struggle, determination, and an artist who refused to stop creating. Yayoi Kusama was born in 1929 in Matsumoto, Japan, and from a very young age, she experienced powerful visual sensations that influenced the way she understood the world. She would see patterns covering surfaces and imagine objects surrounded by repeated shapes. Instead of simply being frightened by these experiences, Kusama began putting them onto paper. Drawing became a way for her to express what she saw and, in many ways, to understand it. As a young woman, Kusama wanted to become an artist, but her path was not easy. Japan's traditional art world was strongly influenced by established ideas and expectations, while Kusama wanted to experiment with something completely different. She began creating paintings filled with repeated marks and patterns. Eventually, she became determined to travel to the United States, believing that New York offered greater opportunities for experimental artists. In 1957, she moved to the United States and soon afterwards settled in New York City. The city exposed her to a completely different artistic environment. She experimented with large paintings, sculptures, installations, and performances. One of the ideas that became central to her work was repetition. Kusama could cover an entire canvas with thousands of tiny marks, creating the feeling that the artwork continued beyond its physical boundaries. These works later became known for their connection to her infinity net paintings. Imagine standing in front of a huge canvas covered with countless small loops. At first, you might notice the individual marks. But after looking longer, the marks begin to disappear into one continuous surface. There is no obvious beginning and no obvious ending. That feeling of endlessness became one of Kusama's most important artistic ideas. Her famous polka dots developed from the same fascination. To Kusama, a dot could represent something much larger than a decorative pattern. When one dot is repeated across an entire room, the individual object can seem to disappear into a larger universe. This idea of losing the boundaries between the individual and the surrounding world appears again and again throughout her career. Kusama also became fascinated with mirrors. Her infinity mirror rooms transformed this idea into an experience rather than simply an image. Instead of looking at infinity on a canvas, visitors could step inside a room filled with mirrors and carefully arranged lights or objects. The reflections multiplied what was inside the room, creating the illusion of endless space. Suddenly, one person could appear to exist in hundreds or thousands of places at once. The experience can feel beautiful, mysterious, and even slightly overwhelming. It makes you question where the room ends and where you begin. That is part of the power of Kusama's art. You do not simply look at it. You experience it. Another unforgettable symbol in Kusama's work is the pumpkin. Her famous pumpkin sculptures, often covered in bold patterns, have become closely associated with her artistic identity. The pumpkin may look playful and cheerful, but Kusama's interest in ordinary objects turning into repeated visual forms is much deeper. A familiar object becomes something strange and almost magical. Her use of strong colors and simple shapes makes the work immediately recognizable, while the repetition gives it a sense of rhythm and infinity. Kusama's career has also been remarkable because of her persistence. She faced many challenges throughout her life, including periods when her work was not fully appreciated. Yet, she continued creating. Over time, her art gained international attention, and museums and galleries around the world began presenting her installations. Her popularity eventually grew far beyond the traditional art world. People who might never normally visit a contemporary art museum became excited to enter her mirrored rooms, photograph the colorful spaces, and experience her world for themselves. But perhaps the most interesting thing about Yayoi Kusama is that her art feels both extremely personal and strangely universal. You do not need to understand every artistic theory behind a mirrored room to feel something when you enter one. You may feel wonder. You may feel small. You may feel surrounded by endless possibilities. Her work takes simple elements, dots, mirrors, pumpkins, repetition, and turns them into questions about existence and identity. Kusama has spent decades exploring the same ideas in different forms, proving that repetition does not necessarily mean doing the same thing without purpose. Sometimes repetition can reveal something new. A single dot may seem insignificant, but millions of dots can create an entirely different reality. One reflection may be ordinary, but endless reflections can make you question what is real. One pumpkin may simply be a pumpkin, but transformed through Kusama's imagination, it becomes a symbol recognized around the world. Today, Yayoi Kusama remains a powerful example of how an artist can turn personal experiences into something that connects with millions of people. Her journey reminds us that creativity does not always begin with having all the answers. Sometimes it begins with simply paying attention to what you see, what you feel, and what refuses to leave your imagination. Kusama took those ideas and built an artistic universe around them. So the next time you see a polka dot, a mirror, or even a simple pumpkin, remember Yayoi Kusama and the extraordinary world she created from repetition. Her story is not only about art, it is about persistence, imagination, and the courage to create something completely your own. If you enjoyed this journey into the life and art of Yayoi Kusama, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because there are many more incredible artists and fascinating stories waiting for you. And tell us in the comments, would you step inside Yayoi Kusama's infinity mirror room?